Welcome back to Stooge Stream. I'm your host, the Stooge, and this is the first episode in the 80s and 90s cartoon review show, where we're going to go back and have a look at 80s and 90s cartoons, episode by episode, break them down, review them, and let you know if they're still worth watching. We start with the granddaddy of them all, my favorite cartoon of all times, and that's Transformers, the original 1984 series, and the first episode, More Than Meets the Eye, Part 1. I absolutely love this show to this day. I'm still a huge Transformers fan, not the Michael Bay bullshit, the real Transformers. I still love the toy lines and merchandise. I still watch the cartoons. The new Combiner War cartoons are actually really good. I read the comics as well. But this is about the original show, that marketing show that was made to market a toy line to a generation of kids. And let's start it off. So it starts with that opening monologue, giving us the premise of who the Autobots and Decepticons are. It's a great way to kick it off. So everybody knows exactly what's going on. The Autobots are the good guys, the Decepticons are the bad guys. Let's get into it. Wheeljack and Bumblebee are getting energon. So you can tell already they're the underdogs, the rebels. It's all about energy, which is quite interesting, being the fact of the climate of the time. There was an energy crisis going on in the world. So it kind of led into what was actually happening around the world as well. And even in 2016, we have energy crisis and problems all over the world, so it's still quite prevalent and relevant. It's two fractions fighting over the remains of the energy on their planet, and there's not enough left. So we're going to jump forward a little bit. They get jumped by some Seekers on the way back, which is, I believe, Thrust and Dirge. There's mentions of Optimus Prime in this sequence as well, while they're getting chased and shot at. So you already get the expectations that this is somebody important. Soundwave has Laserbeak follow and spy on the Autobots. So you already get to see a bit of Laserbeak and Soundwave's spying tactics and duplicity. Prowl, Jazz, Trailbreaker, and Prime are all introduced in the next section. So you already see that there's quite a number of characters on both sides. We've already seen a couple of Seekers, one coloured as Soundwave with the wrong voice, with Megatron's voice at the beginning. There's a couple of audio screw-ups in the first season, which are quite funny when you look back on them now. We've already been introduced to the city of Iacon, which is the Autobots' home base. We've already seen Soundwave, Laserbeak. Now we've seen a bunch of Autobots in Wheeljack, Bumblebee, Prowl, Jazz, Trailbreaker, and Prime. Next up, we see a couple of Decepticons, so Megatron, Starscream, Shockwave. Shockwave's left in power because over the course of this we've heard that there's a new energy source that the Autobots are going to be looking for, and the Decepticons are going to follow them. The Autobots take off in the Ark. The Decepticons follow. There's a meteor shower when two asteroids collide. The Decepticons board the Autobot ship. There's a fight that leads to the crash, where they crash on prehistoric Earth. 4 million years pass. A volcano erupts and wakes the Ark up. It starts repairing the Transformers. It doesn't discriminate between Autobots and Decepticons, so it starts actually repairing the Decepticons first. And this is where we first see the Autobots and Decepticons in the classic Generation 1 forms that we know them, not the Cybertronian forms that we've seen them in up until this point, but their actual classic Prime as a truck, the Seekers are F-16 jets, Megatron as a handgun, Soundwave as a boombox, that type of thing. Because the Ark's scanning for things around for them to be able to, for their alt modes to make them fit in. As they're leaving, Soundwave shoots at the Ark, which disrupts it a little bit, and Prime falls into the repair ray, beam, whatever you want to call it. It leads to him waking up and doing a really cheesy, "Hey, thanks." And then obviously the rest of the Autobots wake up. So they know that the Decepticons have gotten away. Prime sends Hound and Cliffjumper to find the Decepticons, who they find are building a base. There's a local power plant that the Decepticons destroy and start using the materials to actually build their new base within this mountain range. Cliffjumper, of course, is a hothead. He's the red Bumblebee. He shoots at the Decepticons. They send Laserbeak to find out what's going on, forcing Hound and him to run. Laserbeak is chasing them. This is actually a really cool little sequence. So one thing that doesn't make sense is Laserbeak's gun is chasing Cliffjumper on its own. No, it's chasing one of them. Yeah, it's chasing Cliffjumper on its own, by itself. Just the gun part, not the wing, It kind of doesn't make sense, but it still does look cool. Eventually Hound gets hurt because he gets shot off the side of a mountain. And next we see Ratchet, who is the Autobots medic, and Grapple, who is a construction vehicle with a grappling hook. Come and get them and save them, so we're introduced to even more Autobots. A really cool little piece in the next one is one of the Seekers is on a mountain range, sees a truck drive past, he's like, is that an Autobot? And you see three little robots combine into one, and it's a little camera. It's Reflector, who was a mail-away figure, who wasn't actually a figure you could buy in shelves. You had to mail away for the figure. So it's kind of strange to see Reflector actually so prominent in the first episode. He gets a little moment there, and you see him at the end of the episode when you see all the Autobots and Decepticons, you see all three parts of Reflector as well. You're like, that's really weird. Why do they highlight Reflector so much? But it's a very cool moment for fans like myself. They see the truck drive past, they think it's Prime, so it's not. It's actually humans coming to investigate the power plant that the Decepticons destroyed. And this is a weird, when you think about it, moment. Why is there an unmanned power plant in the middle of the desert? Really, an unmanned power plant. That just doesn't make sense. But whatever. So these humans come to investigate. Ravage attacks them. They run off. Ravage growls at them. The Autobots go to face the Decepticons, who are on their way to attack a drilling rig. And this is the first time we meet the human protagonists who are going to follow through the series, and that's Spike and his father, who we'll learn more about in the episodes coming. But it's good to see that they introduced them early on. These weren't an afterthought. This was the younger characters that kids could sort of attach themselves to. I never really cared for Spike or his father at all. Or later, his son, Daniel. Like, I just didn't care for these characters. They were kind of just in the way, but at the same time, as an adult, I understand they're the touch point for the human emotion and interaction, because how do you relate to giant robots otherwise? The Autobots come, there's a fight between the Autobots and Decepticons, who the Decepticons have figured out how to turn crude oil and our energy sources into energon, which is the energy they need. So again, it ties straight back into this message of it's about survival, it's about energy. It's the Decepticons are just going to go to any means necessary to strip our planet dry of the power they need to fix Cybertron and bring it back to its glory, whereas the Autobots aren't necessarily going to do that. They're happy to work with us. They're going to be the friendlier species, we hope. Not completely established in this episode, but you can tell who the good guys and bad guys are, and Megatron keeps going on about stripping the Earth dry of energy. There's a point where even Starscream's like, we've got enough energy to get back to Cybertron now. He goes, you fool, this isn't anywhere near enough. The Decepticons, there's a great fight sequence. The artwork in this is really good. Like, the fighting is very stiff because it is still 80s animation, but the actual artwork is really good. And they highlight almost everyone in these little flash montage fight sequence, which ends with the Decepticons getting away, destroying their oil rig and leaving the Autobots and Spike and his father trapped with fire all around and the rig platform falling all around them. And that's the end of the first episode. That's where it left us. Yes, we used to get lots of cliffhangers and stuff like this, so that's it. That was episode 1 of Transformers. That was More Than Meets the Eye, part 1, season 1, episode 1 from 1986. 1984. 86 was the movie. Really great start to the series. Introduced a lot of characters because they needed to get toys on shelves, which they wholeheartedly introduced as many as possible, including a mail-away figure in Reflector. But the actual story was really well done and still relevant today. When you watch it, you're like, okay, yeah, I still get that. Like, people still fight over oil and resources today, so it makes sense that Even in, a galaxy far, far away, giant robots are fighting over the same resources because why not? We do it. We kill each other over oil and stuff. They do it too. Makes sense. Totally relatable. The characterizations are all there as well. Like, even from the start, Optimus Prime is Optimus Prime and Megatron is Megatron. Starscream is a scheming little, I'm going to be in power one day, I'm going to be the boss. And you can tell he's going to be a backstabby little bitchy character. And, Ravage and Rumble are totally loyal to Megatron through Soundwave. And all the characters are really there. All the elements that make this show great are there in the first episode. And it's definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it yet. And I'll be back with More Than Meets the Eye Part 2, the second episode of the original 1984 Transformers series soon. I've been your host, the Stooge. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you're a fan of Transformers, if you're a fan of 80s cartoons, comment below. Let me know what you think. I'd like to hear from you too. And don't forget, adventure, excitement, Stooge craves not these things. Welcome to the Stooge Revolution.